Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another tutorial. In here I show you how to read data from several tables and join it together to make sense of it. So in here an example I have is a few posts here. So of course this is not a design tutorial, so things won't look very nice, but it's about querying things from your database. So in this case, I have 4 posts here, and as you can see, each post has a category like this one, that one, and each post was created by a specific user like John and Mary. So if I were to click on lifestyle here, I only get the result of all posts that are in this category, right? So if I go back, this one has 2 posts in the same category. If I click, those are the ones I get. Also, if I click on the name, I get all the posts by that user. So John, as you can see. If I go back and click Mary, Mary only has 1 post, and that's what you can see here. So the idea here is that these tables are separate. There's a separate users table, categories table, and a posts table. So these are 3 tables that we're combining together to get this information. Okay. And in order to learn very well how to use queries, we're going to create the database and its tables from scratch using command prompt. Yes, so we will try and avoid using the PHP my admin section that people normally use. We're going to use the command prompt here just to give us a sense of how things would run in here. Okay, so something like this. Okay, great. So I will encourage you to type along with me, because if you don't type along with me, you're not going to learn much. So please, whenever I'm typing something, get your hands dirty and do some typing. That's how you're going to learn these things very quickly. Otherwise, it will look like these things are very difficult to do. So even though you know something about MySQL and reading from several tables, I can guarantee you that you're going to learn something new in here. So continue watching the video to the end. So to begin with, we're going to need a few tools. The first tool we're going to need is a database, of course, and then we're going to need a server to connect to our database. So you can either download MySQL, which will come with its own server, which is fine, or you can just download XAMPP so that we can use PHP as well. So XAMPP is a program that comes with PHP, MySQL, and Apache server. So 3 programs in one, which makes it very convenient. Now, if you're using a Mac, just download MAMP instead of XAMPP. Just replace the X with an M, and you're good to go. So once you download that, install it, and if you click on this link, it will take you to the download page here. So you can download for your system. So Windows 64-bit, and it comes with, like this one comes with PHP 8 or this one, which is nice. Okay, so once you're done with that and you install, open the XAMPP control panel, or if MAMP control panel, and make sure Apache is started and MySQL is also started. So click start on both of these and we are good to go. So now we have a server running and we have MySQL as a database. Very nice. Now if you open your browser and navigate to PHP, that's localhost/phpMyAdmin, you get to this page, which enables you to create databases and create tables in here. So if we come to this, we can simply click new here, and we can enter a database name and create that database. And after that, we can start creating tables within this area here. Now, I want us to do it in a more advanced way. Instead of clicking away like this, it's better to learn how to use queries instead, since we'll be dealing with databases anyway. So we're going to use the command prompt. Yeah, I know the command prompt looks very scary, but bear with me. Now, if you don't like using the command prompt, that's okay. You can simply come to SQL tab here on PHP My Admin. So whatever queries I'm going to be running, in the command prompt, you can simply come to this tab and run them here, and they'll still work exactly the same, right? So here, for example, we don't have a database selected, but we can select a database. Let's say, for example, I want to select this bank DB. I can simply say use bank underscore DB like this and hit go. So once I click go, it has executed, but it says no database selected. I guess you have to select a database here for things to work in this way, because it has to be part of the URL. So I have to click on this and have it in the URL there. Then I can come to SQL and they can execute some SQL or queries based on this database. So I'm just letting you know that you don't have to use the command line to follow me along, but if you use the command line, you get better at running queries. Okay, so just to keep in mind, if you don't like the command prompt, just come here and do things from the SQL tab, no problem. But for the rest of us, let's go to the command prompt, the scary command prompt here, and try a few things. My mouse is really fighting with me here. Okay, so I increased the font size on my command prompt. If you want to do that, you can right click, click properties right here, and then you can go to font. Oh my god. Yes, and then you can adjust the font size. Normally it's at 16, mine is at 28, just so we can see what's going on. Okay, so now to begin with, I want to load MySQL, which is my database, right? So I'm going to say MySQL like this, .exe. Now I don't have to type .exe, it will assume it's an executable, so press enter. Okay, so now I don't know the same commands in Linux or Mac if you're using those, so you have to figure some of these things out, or if it becomes a problem, like I said, just go back to the phpMyAdmin and run things from there. Okay, no hassle, no problem. Now I have to go to the location of MySQL, and I know it's located in drive C because that's where I installed my XAMPP. So I'll put a slash like this and say XAMPP. So I want to change the directory. So I'll say cd and say c XAMPP. That's where I installed it. And then slash again, there's a folder called MySQL. And then there's a bin folder in there, and then like that. So if I press enter, we've shifted to that directory. I can type CLS to clear the screen again. And then if I type dir, that's how I check what's in the directory. Now, if there's too many things, you can do /p to move page like this. And then you do wait, and then it will ask you to press any key to continue to the next page to see more files like this. Okay, very good. Now, the one I'm looking for is mysql.exe. It's right there. So we are in the right folder. That's good. So let's clear the screen again, and then I'll type MySQL like that and press enter. So at least now we are seeing that we are able to access MySQL. Even though we got an error, it says access denied, but that's fine because we just didn't add our username and password. That's okay. Now, if you want to be able to run MySQL from any folder, because if I try right now and just do cd ... that means go a folder above like this, and then try to type MySQL, I will get an error. It will say MySQL is not recognized. This is the same if I go to any directory. Let's say I try to go to drive D and say cd. I'll put a /d to show that I'm moving to another directory, and then say drive D like so. So now we're in drive D, but if I type MySQL, I will see no result. Now, if you want to be able to run MySQL in any from any location, this is what you do in Windows. This obviously only works in Windows. So what I will do is right click on my PC and do properties. Then I will click, I'll find where it says advanced system settings. What I'm looking for is this environment variables. That way I can add a path of where MySQL is, so that I can call it regardless which path I am on. So here where it says system variables, just go to path. Let's look for path here, this one right there. Click edit. Now always be careful when you're editing these, do not delete. If you do, If you think you haven't, you've deleted something by mistake, just cancel this. Now at the very end of this, you can add one more path here by putting a semicolon, then put C/. You can always just go to the folder and copy from the address bar instead of having to type it like this. So C XAMPP, but I know the folder, so I can just type it there. So C XAMPP, and then I'll say MySQL, and then /bin, like that. Don't put a slash at the end. You can put a semicolon if you want, just in preparation for the next thing there to be added, and say OK. Let's say OK there, and OK over here. Let's close that as well. Or we can leave it be, no problem. Let's go back to our command line. Let's try now in Drive D and type my SQL. Okay, still doesn't work. Let's exit the command prompt. Let's type CMD again to get the command prompt. Let's try MySQL without moving to any folder. Okay, so as you can see now, I can use this from any folder at this point. So if I change my directory to D, it doesn't matter. I can still type my SQL like that, and it will respond. This is good because I can run files from here as well if I want query files, SQL files from any folder. Anyway, let's clear that and let's begin our work. We've gone on too long on this tangent. Let's go back to the real deal here. So what I want us to do is open MySQL, and to do that we type MySQL. Now if for some reason you have you don't know what commands to use, you can just type --help like this, and it's going to load the help thing here, so you can scroll around to see what's going on. It will tell you what commands you can use to do whatever you want. So you can go around and read this, but I already know what I want, so I'll clear the screen. I'll say MySQL, and this time I will put -u, which if I put a space, then I can put the username that I want to use, and then I can do -p and put a password. Now our password is empty, so there's no need. We'll just leave it empty like that, press enter, but it will ask me because I didn't put a password, so just press enter again. So once you do this now, you have MariaDB here, which shows you that we are now connected to MySQL. So in order to prove that we really have access, we can just say show databases like that. Now what I've done here is I've pressed enter after a query. So from this point on, whatever I'm typing here, as long as you see this section here, MariaDB, with this portion here, I can't even click and drag with this thing. So once you see that, whatever you type here is considered a query. So in order to terminate the query, you have to put a semicolon. So if I keep pressing enter like this, it will keep doing that until I put a semicolon to show that this is the end of the query. So this is like concatenation. If you don't want to type the query all the way up to the end of the screen, you can just press enter. It will go to the next line and it will still join it. It will consider all this as one string. So type a semicolon to tell it this is the end of the query. So as you can see now, it has shown me all the databases that are in my system. Great. Okay. Okay, what am I doing? There we go. Oops. I'm trying to... Okay, there we go. So it was the control key I needed to do. Okay, so from here, we want to create a database. That's number one that we're going to be using. So this database, we're just going to call it we'll say create database. This is how you create a database. Create database my website _db like this. Now remember, semicolon at the end. Okay. Okay, so that database already exists. So in order to remove an existing database, we say drop database my website _db. So be sure about what you're doing there, because you can delete an entire database. Okay, so one row affected, one warning. I don't know what that warning is, probably this same statement here. So that database is gone now. I can recreate it. So I'll say create database my website underscore db semicolon enter. Okay, great. We are looking good. So the database has been created, even though it was already there, but I just had to show you there. So I'm pressing Control down to shift things up so I have a clear screen. Now I want to use that database. So I'll say use database, and that's my website underscore db, like that. Oh, sorry. You don't say use database, you just say use, and then you put the database name. So my website underscore db, like that. Okay, great. So we know that we are using database has been changed. It says that there. And also we can see that there's a new database in there. So very nice. Now in this database, we want to create users because we're going to need users, we're going to need posts, and we're going to need categories so that we can match these things together. Okay, so let's create a table. So I'm going to say create table users, right? And then we put a bracket. This is where we're going to put all the columns in there. Okay, so the first column we're going to have is an ID column of type integer, like that. Now there's int, there's also big int. You can check these out in MySQL PHP My Admin. Now, if you forget for some reason how to create a database, what the query is when creating a table, all you have to do is go back to PHP My Admin, right? And then click to see all the databases. So I'm going to click on the server here, click that, and then click databases to show me all the databases that are here. Now I can select any of these databases. For example, maybe this one. Where is this? Actually, let me go to a very specific database like BankDB, and then I want to see how to create a table. So right here where there's a list of these, I can select one and then say with selected, show create, like that. So this will show me the create, which I can copy and paste in and run as a query, and it will create this table. So as you can see here, it says create table users, right? A bracket, and then there's a column here and how we implement that. So column and its type. So column name, the type, and a few params here as we go. And then down here we put keys like primary key, another key here, just normal keys, and then we tell it the engine to run here. So this is the basic idea of how to create a table. Now instead of this, we're going to run it ourselves, of course, because we are coders, yeah? So ID int, and then I want this to be the primary key, so I can just type it there and say auto increment at the same time, so it can increment automatically. So auto increment, hopefully that's the correct spelling. So create table users, ID, primary key, that's good. Auto increment, great. Let's put a comma. Let's try to write something else. So we have a name column, variable character, like that. Maybe just 30 characters like this, okay? And then we can select whether this can be no or not no, like this. But we need it to not be no so that we can have a name at least. So let's leave it at that. So name. And then you can add as many columns as you want. For now, I just want a simple system so that it's easy to remember what we are doing. So just a name and the date when this was created. So we'll use date time over there, like this. That should be enough. Okay, so we have an ID, we have the name of the user, right? And then we have the date. Simple and straightforward. Then let's add some keys. Maybe we want to be able to search using the name. There's already a primary key, but we can add the key name and then the column that we are basing that on, which is name, like so. Okay, now we could have put a comma there. Now if you forget, you can just put it there because this is one string, remember? But we are closing things here. So there's an open bracket here. Don't forget about that. We should close it there. And that should be it. So let's put a semicolon and let's press enter. So we have created a table. So everything went well. We didn't get an error. To prove that we have a table, we can say show tables, semicolon, and there we go. So look at that. We have tables in this, and there's one table there, users. Very nice. So now, in order to be able to connect users to, let's say, a post, right? We need to have a post table, of course, and then it can relate by telling us what the user ID of the one who created the post is. So right away, we can create another table. So let's create table. This one is posts, okay? So let's do that same thing. Now, if you're not sure if the table exists before creating it, you can say create table if not exists, like this. Okay, so create table if not exists, posts, like that. Let's open that. Okay, so of course we will need an int, an ID here as well, which is int, same as previously, primary key. And then let's do auto increment, like that. Okay, that's good. And then here, let's have a title for the post. So the title is a variable character of maybe 100 characters max, and then not null because we need that title. And then we can have the post content itself. This one can just be text, like so. And then we can have a date, which is date time, like that. Okay, very good. So this should be enough. But then we need a user ID because we need to know which user created this post. So after the date, we'll put user underscore ID, like that. Okay, so user ID. Now, if you're typing a query and you don't want to run it, you can just type some gibberish so that it produces an error when you try to run it, or you can press, I think it's Ctrl+C to get out of this mode. Okay, so user ID, this one is an integer because we're going to store an int that is the user ID there. So int like that, which is fine. And int is usually 10, like I think it's 11 actually, but you don't need to specify that. You can give it a default value if you want of 0, just in case there's no value there. And then you can also say this should never be null, like that if you want. If you want to allow it to be to accept no values or empty values, you can just type no like that. That's fine. Okay, so let's add a few keys here. So the first key is user ID, of course, which is for the user ID column. So the first param here is the name of the key. So this can be different. You can name your key something else, but then what you put in brackets is the column that you're targeting. So that's the user ID column. That's fine. Let's add another key, maybe for, I don't know, you can add for the date time, for the date like this. And this is for the date column as well. Then you can have another key maybe for the title, because you may want to be able to search the titles of posts. So we say key title, and then we are targeting the title column like this. And then we can just close the brackets, semicolon, run this. And there we go. So now if I type show tables, we'll see a very different picture. So let me move this up like so. Let's say show tables. And there we go. So we have 2 tables in our MySQL. Now, what I'm doing here really is just creating tables in the system. If I happen to go to my PHP my admin here, I will find exactly what I'm doing here already here. So let's look for our database that we created. There it is, my website DB. And if I click, you see there are 2 tables. There's users table and the posts table. If you click here, you will see exactly what I created there, ID, name, and date. And then in the posts, there's a title, post, excuse me, date, and user ID. Simple and straightforward, right? Now, we also want to be able to put a category on the title, on the post, sorry. Now, in this case, we need to alter the table and then add an extra column. Now, to alter a table, we just say alter table, add column or something, I think. So I'm not really sure about this, and I intentionally did not find out how to do this. But if, for example, there's an action and you want to know how the query should be run, all you have to do is you can come to this phpMyAdmin, perform that action, and it will show you the query that was run in order to create it, right? So for example, if I go to the structure here and I want to create one more column, I'll just click on go, like here. Oopsie daisy, my mouse. And then I can add a column like, let's say, category ID, maybe. Category ID right there. And then this one will be just an int like that. And then if I click save, it's going to run a query, right? So let's save that. Oops, the query went over my head. I don't know why it did that, but usually it shows the query. Maybe my mouse is double clicking or something, which is terrible. So let's try that again. Let's drop this. So do you really want to? This is how it is done. So you see, want to execute, alter table posts, right? That's the table name. Drop category ID. So we can do that from the other side or here. So that category is gone. Let's try that again. My mouse is failing me in this case. Oh boy, it runs by so fast, I can't figure it out. Now, you can, if you have a problem and you don't know what query to run, just type MySQL, create new column, right? So you search. Google is your friend. So if you have a problem, always just Google and find out, because any problem you're having, I can guarantee you that somebody else already had that problem and they figured out how to solve it. So here you see alter table and the table name, add column, add the column name and data type. So simple and straightforward. So let's try that. Alter table. So let's try to alter a table. Now, if I want to see, let's say the structure of a table, what I'll do is I'll type describe and let's look at the posts table. So I'll say describe posts like that. And then it will show me a table containing the information, the fields on that table, right? So it has ID. These are the fields and these are the types of fields, whether they are null or not, and the key type that is here, and the default values, and whether they are auto increment or not. So very handy thing right there. So we want to add category ID here. So we're just going to say alter table, and the table name is posts. Add, and then we add a column. Okay, so what we will call it, why do I like product? So we'll say category ID like this, and then let's give it a type. What type is this? It's an int, simple and straightforward. There we go. So everything went well. 0 records, duplicates, warning. All right, good. Now let's describe it again. Describe posts. And there we go. So now we have an extra column right there. If we wanted to drop it, we can drop it by saying alter table, drop column, and drop, we write the column name, etc., etc. Okay, good. So far so good. Now we need to create a categories table. So let's scroll down a little bit. Okay, so here let's create another table. We can create table categories. Okay, and you can put the if not exists, as I mentioned earlier, if that's what you want. So from this one, of course, we want an ID, int, primary key. Now in the command prompt, you can actually copy and paste text. So you can do that if you don't want to be typing all the time. you can save some text and just paste it here and run it. So add int primary key, or id int primary key auto increment. Okay, great, comma there. And now we want the category name, so we just call it category. This is a variable character. I don't know how long category names should be, but maybe 30 characters should be enough. It's up to you. And this should never be null. We don't even need a default value here. So that's the category. So the ID of the category name itself. What else do we need? Actually, that's it. Now, sometimes if you want to be able to delete or disable or enable some of these categories, you can put a disabled column for tiny int. It's a very tiny integer because we just need one value, 0 or 1. So we just put 1 like that because it's 1 digit long. And then we'll give it a default value of 0 like that. Obviously not null. Okay, so let's close that. This is good enough. Oh, but before we close, let's add a few keys. So I'll put a comma there and put key. I want to key the, I may want to search by category like that. Okay. Also, I may want to check if it's disabled or not before I read from it. So like that. All right, that should be it. Right, let's close that and wrap it up. Now we can start to not describe, but show tables. And there we go. So we have categories, we have posts. Let's see what is inside categories. So let's describe categories. And there we go. So this is what we have there. So very good. We have everything we need. Now, if I want to clear the screen, because everything is due here that I've done so far, if I scroll up, I can see it. I don't know how to clear that from the MySQL console like this, but I can just press Ctrl+C to exit, or you can just say exit or quit. Actually, you can just type quit to get out of this. Then I can clear the screen like so, CLS, and then we can get back to business and just type MySQL. Now I still need to sign in, so I'll say root. I won't put a password there because there's no password. All right, then let me use the database I want. Use my website _db, and there we go. Okay, cool. Less text to worry about. All right, now from this, let's try and see how we can read information from our newly created database. Now, before we read information, we need to be able to add information, right? So to add information, we need to provide information for every column in that table, okay? And as long as the table we're targeting right now is the users table, we want to add some users. So let's say describe users for a second so we can see what fields are involved. Now, all these do not accept, this one accepts no values, right? Empty strings. Actually, I should have told it to set it to save the current date, but yeah, my mistake there. I don't even know how to alter that table. We can do it from here and then see what query comes up. So if I go to, let's say, users table. So the reason why I'm using the command prompt is I advise you to use it as well. It makes you very good at running queries. Yeah, it gives you that habit of running queries, even though you can easily do it here by clicking away. Avoid the temptation. Let me click change here. Only come here when you don't know how to do that action and you need to see the query that can do that action. So default here, we could have said default, click, and then we could have put current timestamp. That's what we should have put there. So we can still say alter. We can alter the column, current timestamp. Let's save. Okay, so this is the query that was run. Alter table users, change date. Okay, so we are changing the date column, right? And then to what are we changing it to? We can change the name and the type right here and put all the default current timestamp. Okay, so great. Now I know how to do that. So let's come back to here. So now we want to insert some data. So to read data from the users table, we just do select all, which is all the columns. That's the star. If you want to select specific columns, you can say ID / name, and then you continue. But we want all the columns, so we put a star from users, just like that. So there's no records, it says an empty set. So let's add some information. Now to add information, we insert, that's the query, insert into users, like that. You put brackets like that, and then you put values, and then you put more brackets, semicolon. This is how it works. Let me leave some spaces here. Okay, so this is the insert query. Insert into users, put your column names in here, and put the values, the corresponding values in there. Simple and straightforward. So here I want the columns that I want to edit, which is name. I don't worry about date because it's going to update with the current timestamp, so that's fine. So all I need is to just add the name. Even here, if I had multiple columns to add, like for example the date, I would put a comma and put date like that. Okay, but I'm just adding to the name. The ID will auto increment on its own, so that's okay. So what name am I putting? Now keep in mind the name is a string, so of course I'll put it between quotes like that. Okay, so that's all I need to do. Insert into users like that. Now I can put multiple queries here, no problem. And also I can select, shift select like this, because the command prompt has come a long way. I can copy. I don't know if that actually did copy. And then press enter. So one column. Now let's select all from users. Now we should have at least some data to see. And as you can see, there's John, and there's the time, the current timestamp. Let's paste another one and just change the name. This is Mary now, and let's press enter. There we go. Now let's do again, select all from users like that, semicolon, and there we go. So now we have two records in here. We have John and we have Mary. Now, as you can see, they have a particular ID there, which is cool. Now, if I go to PHP by admin and click browse on this particular table, you will see exactly the same results. And you can see here what query it's running for when I click browse. It just says select all from users. That's the query being run right now. Okay, cool. So from here now, we want to create more records in the category. So let's create some categories and some names, right? So that we can assign posts with a category. So what category names can we do? So let's say insert into categories, right? The column names. So what column names do we have? Now, it's a good idea to always have some reference. So we just say describe categories. Okay, so that at least we have some reference on what the column names are. So let's start by saying insert into categories. And let's do that. Oh no, I didn't need to do that actually. Can't go back. Okay, that's fine. Here, we just want the category. That's the column. That's the only column. This one has a default value, the disabled, so it will put it automatically. And then let's do values. And then in here, what will be the value name? Here, let's say category is maybe lifestyle. Okay, so there we go. We've created. Let's do another one. Insert into categories. The column is category that we are dealing with, the value. There's lifestyle, there's maybe home and living, like that. That could be a category, right? So to save time, we can just copy the entire query for the next time. Yeah, there we go. And then one more time, let's just change this. Electronics. Let's add one more and let's put clothing. There we go. Good. Now let's check what's inside. So we say select all from categories, right? And there we go. So we have some categories in the category table, and we can prove that by going back here and clicking on the categories table, and you see, there we go. Brilliant, right? Cool. So with that in mind, now we can begin to put posts. So the idea behind how to connect a post with its user and its category is seen in how we have done the posts table. We say describe posts. So as you can see in the posts table, we have everything that a post should have, but we also have this user ID and we also have a category ID. So for example, if we want to put this item inside the lifestyle category, we're going to put a 1 in this column, which means that's the category. Or we put 4, which means it's the clothing category. Now, the reason we are not putting all these things in the same, let me actually explain this a little bit. Maybe it may be time to do that. So I'm going to use Sublime Text, a text editor. Obviously, this is just for explanation. So let's say, for example, we have a post, right? A post table, because we want to create posts in here. So I'm trying to explain why we put user ID and category ID in there instead of just putting the names of the categories and the name of the user, because you could be tempted to do that. So let's say, for example, you just have a posts table, right? And then you have an ID, you have the title, you have the post content, and then here where you have user, you put a username, and the category, you put an actual category. Okay, so let's say this item is ID 1 and the post title is my post, and we'll skip the post content, maybe it's just an empty string, and then we, instead of putting an ID, we put the name John, like that. Okay, and then in the category we say lifestyle, directly like that. So what this would do is it will eliminate the need to even have a users table altogether and a categories table. So we can just have a posts table only, because we already know from just this post table who actually wrote the post, and we know what category it's in. The only problem with this is that imagine if I had several of these posts, and these are different posts. Let's imagine they're different posts, but they're written by the same user, okay? And they're in the same category. Now, it so happens that I want to change the category name to lifestyles instead of just lifestyle. I just want to change it to lifestyles. So if I have 1,000 records in here, it means I have to go and change every single record from lifestyle to lifestyles, because this category of lifestyle no longer exists. Now, this, for as long as you have to change more than one row in a table, there is always the possibility that some of the rows may not be changed. An error could occur. These things are not perfect. So if, for example, it changes all of them except one of these, then you have a situation where you have a column, a category, that does not exist anymore, but the information is still in the table because one of those rows was never changed. So This may not seem like a big problem, but it can be over time, because every time you change something, there's a possibility that one thing may not be changed because you're changing thousands of records. So over time, you're going to have a lot of categories that no longer exist but are still in the table, because every time you make changes, there's a possibility that one of them or two or even 10 may not be changed. This leads to a problem with data. There's actually a field of study that deals with this. I've just forgotten what it's called. It's called database. I don't know. Database. I don't know, optimization or something. I forget what it's called. But anyway, that's the problem. It's the same issue with the name. Let's say the user wants to edit their name. Instead of just editing it in the users table, they're going to have to edit it here wherever they put posts. Now, the problem can become even worse if there's just not the posts table. There are more tables than just the posts. Maybe we have posts and we have images or articles or something, or just something else, or music, for example. So we have posts, we have music. So even in the music table, we'll have to go and change that category as well for as long as we changed its name. So as you can see, it causes a lot of chaos. Now, in our case, what we do instead, we put an ID here. Let's say ID for the user, right? And then for the category here, let's do this. Oops. Why, Mr. Mouse, are you like this? Okay, there we go. So let's say we have an ID of 1 for a category and we have a user of 4. This is very good because in case we just have to look for the category in the categories table that has an ID of 1. And then in case we want to change the name of that category, in that table, we just need to edit one record. And for as long as this ID is pointing to that same record, we are good. One record, we can't go wrong with that. If it doesn't change, it doesn't change. If it changes, it changes. So it's just one record. Same with the user here. Even if the user changes their name, we still know who exactly wrote this post. So this is why we do it like this. Okay, so hopefully that is understood. All right, so after that tangent, let's get back to business. So in here, we want to start creating posts now and associate categories and users with them. Then we can check to see how we can read from all of those tables at once. Okay, so let's construct a query here that will be useful with reference there. Okay, so here we're going to say insert into posts. And let's open that up. Now I can drop this down here so I can do the columns from here. So the columns we want to deal with are the title, and we want to add a post, and we can't, the date will be empty here, but that's not a big deal. We'll change things there in a minute. So title, posts, we ignore the date. And then we go to user ID and then category ID, like that. So from there, we put our values and open that. So we try to match that. So what's the title? My post. What's the post itself? We'll just put some text and say this is a post. As short as possible, these things. Now, because we are using IDs, user ID, I'll just get the first user to be responsible for this one, and also maybe the second category there. Okay. Now, since these are numbers, we don't need to put quotes around them, but you can put quotes if you want. And that's it. So like this, we can, let me see if I can actually copy all of this. Is this possible? No, probably not a good idea. So enter, and there we go. So let's try this again, right? Let's add one more. So I'll put one string so I can copy it for later. So say insert into posts. Here we have title, post, user ID. Oh, before I actually do any of this, let me read from it, because I want to see what the date is. So you see the date is empty. So let's change this. Let's say alter table posts. Okay, so we want to change something there. I want to change the date to put the current timestamp whenever I save data. So say alter table posts, that's the table name, and then we'll say change. What column are we changing? Date. What are we changing it to? We're changing it still, it's going to be called date, but then it's going to be a type date time still. But in this case, we want to add a default value of current underscore timestamp. Yeah, we can put not null if we want at the end, but that should work. So let's press enter, and there we go. Things have been changed, I hope. We can check this by just saying describe posts, and we can see that now it has current timestamp on the date. Okay, cool. Now, if you want to delete a row, let's say here we have a row here, and the row number is, it's ID number 1, right? We can use that to delete this. So if to delete is simple. You just say delete, delete from posts where ID is equal to 1. Okay, just like that. Now, if I try to select everything from posts, I should come up with an empty set. Okay, great. So I've deleted so that the next post I write should have a current date. So something else I wanted to do, I've just forgotten right now. Oh my goodness. Okay, anyway, that's the thing. We've deleted. Now we can select. Okay, so let's add one more record in there. So we'll say insert into posts. And let's go again, title. What else do we need? Title, post. We don't need to insert the date. We just need the user ID and the category ID, like that. Okay, and then let's do values. Our values will be the title, my post. Oh, now I remember what I wanted to do, but that's fine. I'll copy this. My post, and then the post itself is, this is, I'll just say a new post, right? And then what user ID 1, category 2, close that, semicolon. Then let me copy this whole query so I can just paste it next time. Now I'm going to enter this, save this, but I want you to observe if I read, select all from posts. You will see that even though there's just one record, it's ID number 2, right? Because even though we delete this one, the auto increment continues. It does not reset, right? So let's try and run a query to reset it. But first, let's delete what's in here. So I'm going to say delete from posts where ID is greater than 0. So everything, just delete everything. And there we go. So now it's an empty, but let's change it. Let's say alter table posts. Let's say auto increment is equal to 1. Okay, there we go. That's how you change it. You alter the table and then you set auto increment is equal to 1. That way, if I add a new post, it's not going to be ID 3 but ID 1. So let's try that. I will paste my query to paste that same post, and then I will now select from posts. Like that. Okay, and as you can see now, the new post has an ID of 1. That's how you can reset the auto increment there. Okay, so hopefully you are learning some cool stuff in here. Otherwise, this is all for nothing. But anyway, continuing, at least now we have a current date stamp, etc., etc. So let's add just one more post here. This one, I wanted to have an ID of, let's use user ID is 2 and then category ID of 1, like that. So here, my second, wait, what have I done? Oh, forgot I can't undo here. Righty then. A new, I'll just say some post, my new post, just so it's different. Enter. Okay, so select all from posts. There we go. So we have 2 posts now. Now I must emphasize this, as you're watching this, you must do this yourself, because it looks very hard when you're just watching this and easy to forget, but you must type along to make sure that it's sticking into your mind. Very important. Okay, so there we go. We have 2 posts now. Very nice. We can add one last post. So let's add a third post while we still have this. Let's try our category ID. Now, keep in mind that these should match whatever you put first here in the name of the column. You don't have to write these columns in order. You can write them in any order as long as the order here matches the values order there. That's it. So title, let's try that. Let's go here and say my third post, and third, a new post or something. I just want to make it a bit different, and then press. Now, important as well is to give different users. So user number 3, are there 3 users? I hope. And then here category number 4. Enter. Okay, so select all from posts. Let's see what we've got. There we go. Very cool. And then now let's select all from users, just so we can see. Oh, so there is no user number 3, right? My bad. So here there's no user ID number 3. So let me just reverse this and give this to user number 1. So how do I update this record? All I need to do is know something unique about the record. ID, I know, is always unique, so it's better to use that. So it's ID number 3, this record, and I want to change the column user ID, right? So all I have to do is say update posts, that's the table name, and then I say set, and then go one by one with the columns. So I want to set user ID is equal to 1. Okay, now if this was text that I'm saving here, I'll do this. So user ID, set user ID is equal to 1. Now, if there are more columns you want to edit, you can say comma and then say date is equal to, and then add a date there, and keep doing the comma until you have enough columns. But we're just doing 1 column, so that's fine. No comma there. So set user ID is equal to 1, where, now we want to tell it where to set this. I can run this query as it is right now and it will work, no problem, but it's going to set user ID to 1 on every record. So unless I put a where clause and tell it exactly where to change, this one is ID number 3. So I'll say where ID is equal to 3. You can also say limit 1 in case there are many items with ID number 3, but you just want to edit the first one. So you can say limit 1 to make sure that it only edits 1 record. And there we go. So matched 1. So it tells you that it actually matched 1 record and changed it successfully. No warnings. So now let's do a select all from posts to see the new data. So as you can see now, this has changed to 1. Just from that to this. Okay, very good. Now let's get to the meat of the matter here. How do we read from this database to make sure that we combine all these tables into one? So I'm going to show you several ways to get the data in one query from several tables. So let's clear all this. I'm just going to say quit. Yes, quit. And then clear the screen. But then I'm back to MySQL and I'll clutter the screen again. Great. Look at that. So I want to use my website DB. Great. Okay, still less clutter than before. So at least now we are back in our database. Okay, so there are several ways to do this. Now, let me explain a little bit here, the ways we have. So the first one we have is the union keyword, like that, okay? And then we have joins. Now, joins are 3 of them, or maybe more, depending on the situation. There's a left join, there's right join, and there's just a join. I think it's a, what do you call that? There's an intersecting join, union join, or there's an inner join and an outer join. Yes. So there's left join, right join, there's inner join, and then there's outer join. Yeah, this can get very complex at some point. So this is why it's important to test these things yourself. If you're just watching the video, I can guarantee you they'll just fly over your head. So there's union, there's joins, and then my personal favorite, there's subqueries. Okay, so very cool. 3 ways we're going to see how to join several tables. So let's start with the union. Now, union is very simple and straightforward, but has a limited use case. So let's give an example here. Let me go back to PHP My Admin. Maybe it may be easier to see here because we just click buttons. Now, a union joins 2 queries from 2 tables. Now, it doesn't join them left to right, it joins them up and down. So what I want you to imagine is if you read from the categories table, right, it's got 3 columns. What else has 3 columns? The users table, 3 columns. Now, since these have 3 equal columns, you can actually imagine if you read from the users table and then immediately after, down here in the same table, you read from the categories table and then join the results together. That's what union does. So you may have a use case for this could be, let's say for example, the way you have Facebook, right? Facebook has profiles and pages. Now imagine that there are 2 tables where posts from a user's profile are saved in one table and posts from the page are saved in a pages posts table. So there are 2 tables that save separately, posts from pages and posts from users. Now, if for example, for one reason or another, someone is searching for a post and they don't know whether it's from the profiles or from a page, you can use the union to join the results from 2 tables in a straight line. So let me give you an example here. So what we will do is, let's do a select all from users. Simple. There we go, right? Let's do another select all from categories. There we go. Now, what you will notice is the columns are equal number. Now, it's important in the union thing that the column count is exactly the same, otherwise it will refuse to work. So what I want to do now is to join both tables into one result. So just say select all from users and then say union select all from categories. Simple as that. One query from here, one query from there. Let's see what we get. And look at that. Yeah. So we have name. So it gets the columns from the first one that you query. So you see there are no column, the column names for category are ID, category, and disabled, right? But we don't see them in the result set because it gets only the columns from the first query. So you can union several. You can say select all from users, union this, and then you can say union and run another query there. No problemo. It will still work, right? Now the columns are lost to these ones here, as you can see, because immediately after running this query, you just put another query down here. So this only works well if there are similar columns in both tables, then you can select which columns to read. Now, like I said, the column count has to be exactly the same. So let's try this and say select all from users. So we say union and then select all from categories. Now we know categories has a different number of columns, right? So let's press enter and see what happens. Oh, wait, sorry. Should be posts. My bad. Let me just press, yeah, there we go. F2. So let's do posts like that. Okay, so this is the error we get. It says the used select statements have a different number of columns. So it tells you right there. The columns are different in number. So how can we solve this problem? Let's say I want to read from users and I want to join from post table, but the column count is different. So all I need to do is just select a sub number of columns. So if we watch the, let me come down here. Let's compare the two tables. So say select all from users, right? There we go. Select all from posts. There we go. So as you can see, different number. Now what I want is to join, let's say the name should be joined to title, date obviously to the date, and then there'll be ID. So there's just 3 here. So I can select 3 from here to join with this one. So let's say select all from users. And then let's union this with select. Now instead of saying select all, I'll select specific ones. I'll say ID, and then I'll say title, and then I'll say date, like that. Okay? From posts. And now, as you can see, it worked because the number of columns is exactly the same. So this is the use case for union. Not very useful in the real world. There are cases where this is the way to go, like I explained, when you want to join 2 tables with similar data. Posts from one side, from one table, and posts from another table, because they are both posts, they are more likely to have similar columns, which can be useful. Okay, so that's it for the union. We'll leave it there for now. Let's go to the next one, which is, let's try joins, right? Now, joins are a little bit complex, so bear with me here. Actually, maybe instead of joins, let's try subqueries first, because these ones are easier. Then we can deal with joins. So let's go to subqueries instead. So let's say, for example, I want the result of one query to be used in the querying of another table. This is where subqueries work. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to find a post that was created by a specific user. Okay, let's say here we have 2 users. We have John and we have Mary. But if I want to know what which posts were done by John, all I have to do is query from the post table and just use John's user ID, right? So here there's an ID for John, which is 1. So if I say wherever there's ID of 1, it will return these 2 posts. So this is very straightforward, but there are times when you are given a name and not an ID. Now keep in mind that we don't have a username here. So if I'm given the word John and say query the posts done by John, this is not going to work because I can't know which of these posts was done by John just looking at the user ID. I can't. I don't know the user ID of John. So what I will need to do is query the table of users to find where John is, grab the user ID, the ID here, yes, and then use that to query here. Now, this may not be a big deal when you're using things like PHP because you can run two queries. You run one query, then once you get a result, you grab that ID, and then you run a second query. But we don't have that luxury here because we are not running PHP at all. We're just querying things directly. So we need a way to be able to say, okay, the results of this table, run another query with those results. So let's start first by looking at how we can query something here. If we had the ID of 1, how do we query from this table? So all I need to do is say select all from posts because we are getting a post, but we tell it which one. We say where the user ID of the post is equal to 1, like so. Okay, so if I press enter, I get 2 posts done by the user with an ID of 1. So this is all well and good, but like I said, what if you do not have the, let's say you do not have the user ID. So let's try that again. Now I don't have the user ID. Instead, I have the word John, right? Which is right there in the users table, right there. So what I want to do is grab the name, grab the ID, but using the name. So I will use a subquery. So let's imagine for a second, we say select all from posts where user ID is equal to, but we don't have this one. So instead, we want to use the result of another query to say equal to. So in this case, I will do this, right? So where posts ID is equal to, and then I'll put brackets to run another query in here. I don't need to put brackets, but it's easier to see. So here what I'll do instead, I'll say select all from users where name is equal to John, like this. Now it's capital John. I don't know if it's case sensitive, but I doubt it. I think it's not. Let's try this, right? So you see here what's happening. There's a select from posts where user ID is equal to this. Now keep in mind that when I say select all from, I'm saying select all the columns. So it's going to be a bit hard for MySQL to know which column really to match this user ID to, right? If we go through the users table, you see that ID is the one that we want to match this user ID. So we just tell it to select one column in this case. So we come back to the select all and change that with that. So keep in mind that every time you try something like this and put a subquery, you must only select one column. Otherwise, it will be confused which column to equate the result to. So select ID from users where the name is John. So if the name is John, select its ID, use it in this other query. So with this in mind, let's try and see if it's going to work. And as you can see, it actually worked. Look at that. ID is equal to 1. Even though we didn't know what the ID is, we just knew who John is, it actually worked. Okay. Now let's imagine you want to, you're doing a search, okay? And instead of one result, we don't want the result of one user. Maybe we want the result of posts from 2 users instead of just one. Because here if I say is equal to, and then say ID, we're selecting the ID where it's equal to John. Let's try this. Let me copy that. Let's paste it again. Exactly the same query. Okay, maybe I didn't copy it properly. Yes, that's the same query, right? But let's put an or here and say or name is equal to Mary, like this, right? Okay. Let's see what happens here. So I want to select from users where name is John or the name is Mary. Both of them should have the result. So let's try that. Let me press enter. So here is the result we get. It says subquery returns more than one row. So this is a problem, right? It should not return more than one row because you cannot equate one item to more than is required. So it doesn't work when you do this. But what if you want it to work? How do you do it? Well, there's a solution, of course. So where John or Mary, but instead of using the word equal, just put in there. Like this. Let's try this. And there we go. We got the results we wanted because it has given us both posts from Mary and John. But why did this work? So let's try and probe this. The reason it worked is, if let's grab this query up to the word in right there. Let's see why that worked and equal sign did not. So let's paste that. So what in is used for is to create an array like this. So I can say selector from post where the user ID in, and then I put 1. So it's just going to say where the in is used for a list. Let me put it that way. So selector from post where user ID in, and then I'll put 1 like that. Let's try that. And we did get a result. Look at that. Good. But the advantage of in over equal sign is that you can have multiple items. So I can say where the user ID is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 40 like this. So it's going to say as long as the user ID matches whatever items are in here, then we are good to go. So if I press enter, this is going to return whichever of these were matched. This is why it works when you do this, even though the results are many, because it's just going to layer them like this. So hopefully this is working. Now, it's just these subqueries can be used in multiple ways. You can use subqueries within subquery within subquery within subquery, right? Let me show you that. So it's going to get a little bit complex, but let's see how that can be done. So what I'm trying to see here is this. Let me clear things a little bit. Let me just go up like that. Okay. So what I want is, let's keep in mind, let's select all from users, right? Let's remind ourselves what kind of records we have. Select all from categories. And then select all from posts. Right. Okay, so we're reminding ourselves what we have. So we have 2 users. We have a few categories here. And then we have actual posts. Now I want to have a nested situation here. So let's say, for example, first of all, we want to select a post where the category is equal to, or let's say lifestyle, right? The category is equal to lifestyle, but only if it was posted by John, right? So we want a post that was posted by John, but then it must have a category of lifestyle. So this doesn't actually require a subquery inside a subquery, but it can be done that way because we do have category ID and user ID here. So we don't need that. Now, what we can do though is, let's say, wait a minute here. So all we have to do is the same query where we say user ID is equal to 1 and category ID is equal to 2. Then we'll grab specific ones. But let's say we had these names instead. We didn't have the IDs. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that, what if you don't have the ID, but you have the name? The reason is this. When you're running a website, okay, and you have a link to, let's say, items in a specific category. In the URL, you're not going to put the ID there. You could put the ID, no problem. That will make things easier to read because you can just say, show me all posts with this ID, which is in the URL. Okay, so that's easy. Now, the problem with that is not SEO friendly because if someone sees that link on the internet, excuse me, they want to know what category number one is, right? So it makes it difficult for searching. But if you put the word lifestyle in your URL instead, it's going to be part of the search results where somebody's searching for lifestyle because it's part of the URL. So this is why in the URL, it's always better to add actual text instead of IDs. If you are doing it for SEO or search engine optimization. So this is why I'm giving you a scenario where you only know the name of the category, you don't know its ID, and now you have to find posts that are in that category, even though when saving, you just used the IDs. That's why I'm giving you these scenarios, okay? Now, there will be time where you need a subquery within a subquery, but that's fine. So just know that you should follow the format, say select all from, and then let's say posts. And then you can write where maybe user ID. Let's try this, where user ID in, and then we can put, or we can say equal for now and say select ID from users where name is equal to John, like this. Okay, so we've done that, but then you can say, and you can continue and say category ID is equal to, and then you can put another select statement. Let's put a semicolon at the end there, and then say select, obviously we will just want the ID from categories where ID, or where category is equal to, what category do you want? Maybe clothing, like so. So here we are looking for two things to be met. One, the name should be John, the guy should be John, and the category should be clothing. If we look at this, we see that this one matches that. There's John here, which is ID number 1, and then category 4, which is clothing. So this one, we should get one result set. So let's try that. And there we go. We did get one result. So as you can see, you can utilize these subqueries. Now, subqueries can even be added on the column side here. Now, that's a bit complex, so we won't go there, lest I confuse you guys. But this is what you can do. Now, within this, let's say select where name is equal to John, for example. There could be certain times when you don't even know this John thingy. Maybe for some reason you have, let me grab this first of all. Let's try this so that you can see what I'm talking about. So selector from post where user ID is equal to. So obviously this will work because there are two records written by John. But what if for some reason I have an ID instead of the word John, right? But then I need the word John instead here for this result to run that. Now that doesn't make sense in this case because if I have the ID, I can just put the ID right there. The user ID is equal to that. But let's imagine there have been situations, I just can't think of one right now, where I have used subqueries that go as deep as 4. So here we just want 2. So here I can, instead of saying name is equal to, like this, I can instead put a query in here and say select, I want the name because that's what I'm looking for here. Select name from users where ID is equal to 1, like this. So what I'm trying to show you is that there's a subquery within a subquery, and then that result comes in here. So in order to know what's happening, you just need to go into the lowest the one that's deep in there, like this one. This one is the deepest query. Get a result for that, and then match that here, and then use that result to match that there. Keep in mind that every one of these has only one column that's in here, returns only one column, and the result should only be one result. If there are multiple results, this will fail. If you don't want it to fail, change the equal signs to in, like that, and then it won't fail even though there are multiple, because sometimes you do want multiple results. In this case, there's just one result, except this one on the outside will have multiple results, but the inner subqueries will not. So at the end, let me do that and press enter, and there we go. This is what I get. Both of these are done by John. This is all I wanted. All posts from John. That's what this query is all about. So this is how you do subqueries. So subqueries, in summary, subqueries will give you results from one table, right? So it's results from one table, but based on queries from other tables. Now you can even use subqueries on the table itself. You can use a select statement from the same point here. Let me give you an example. Let's go to the users and say select all from users, right? Where ID is equal to, and then let's say I don't know the ID, I just know the name. Now I could search for the name, but I just want to show you that it's possible. So select name, or select ID, because that's what I need. From users, again, same table, right? Users, same table. Select ID from users, where name is equal to John, like this. So this is obviously ridiculous, because I could just easily have just said where name is equal to John here. But I'm just showing you that there are instances where you find this useful, where you can have a subquery within a subquery within a subquery from the same table. So I haven't read from two different tables. It's exactly the same table, but I can still do this. And in here, I can put another subquery, and within that subquery, I can put another subquery and keep going, and it will still work just fine. Okay, so that's about subqueries. So they return a result from one table based on results from other tables or the same table. Okay, so good on this one. Let's quit this and clear the screen. Let's go back to MySQL. Oh, sorry, my bad. MySQL -u. The user is root. Okay, good. Then let's use a table. Good. Okay, so we are back in business. Now we go to the last one, which is joins. Okay, cool. So a join instead, if you've seen so far, what we've done is we are returning results from one table. It looks like one table when we return the results, even though the union got results from another table, put them in one table. It's similar. So join is similar to union. The only difference is that whereas union joins the tables in terms of columns, right? This is column based. Like this. Column based, right? Joins are row based. I don't know if that's accurate. Depends how you see it. Union will join, will read from one table and then join the other results down in the same columns. We just concatenate to that same table. But a join will extend columns, will create new columns in your results from two different tables. So let's see that in action. Let's try an outer join. Now, to remind ourselves what joins are really, let's say MySQL joins. Now, W3 schools is very nice for when you are learning stuff, I guess. So there's a diagram here I think I should have seen. Oh, my internet is terrible as well. They should have done, there we go. Oh, so they call it cross join, right? Interesting. This is an out. Oh, there's actually an outer join. There's one missing here, I think, if you can see it. There's one that's outer join where this and this are shaded, but not this one. I think they missed it here. Or maybe it's not available in MySQL. I don't know. But anyway, these are joins here. So there's an inner join, and yeah, the outer join is missing. This is a cross join, which is like union. So there's an inner join, a left join, and a right join. So let me explain what these are. For the longest time, I didn't know what joins were, and just even the thought of learning these things was just a headache. But hopefully, with my explanation, you understand what's going on here. Okay, so what this one is saying here is that the joins differ with the result. What result is returned, right? Let's say we run queries on two tables. So we're going to run queries on two tables. And the result of an inner join is the records that are found in both table 1 and table 2. That's the result you're going to get from an inner join. And then the left join is going to return all the records from table 1, but then try to find matches in the other table here. Okay, so let's say we have users. It will bring all the users, then try to find matches on the other table and join them. Now, because certain records in table 1 will not have a match in table 2, right? As you can see here, some of them are empty. So wherever there's no match, it will put no values, empty values. You will see that in action. The opposite is correct with right join. It will read all tables, all records from the second. Now, what determines left and right table is just whatever query you run first, on whichever table you run first, that's the one that will get all the records in a left join. And here, if you say select from table 1 and then join table 2, if you use a right join, it will make sure all the records from table 2 are returned, and then the matching tables from table 1 are added. This one just returns everything. So let's start with this one. I think this one is easier to understand. So let's come back here and see what this join is going to be. It's a cross join, but we just call it join. So to remind ourselves what we have in our table, let's select from users. Alright. Let's select all from posts because we want to join these two. Now, why is a join? Why would you need a join? Let's say, for example, you are reading posts, right? I think this is a favorite use of reading from several tables. This is the most common, I mean. So here we have user ID and here we have category ID. Now, I don't want to see user ID instead. I want to see the actual user names in here, or just add an extra column here for username and actual name of the category. So I want to maintain this idea that the users are in a different table, but when I read from the database, I want those names here so that I don't have to run extra queries. If I'm displaying this post, I will have a column with the name of the user that created it and the name of the category that makes sense to a person. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, of course, we are reading from the post table because the end result is we want posts. Then we just want to add extra columns to it. So in order to join, let me just show you a union join, a complete join of these two tables where I will read this, or I'll read the users table and then join this table to it right up front. So let's see that. We just say select all from users, right? And then I want to join another table. So instead of saying select again, like we did with union, I just say select all from users, join posts. That's it. So select all from users and join posts. Those are another table. But at this point, it's still lost because it doesn't know which one to join where, which column to join where, because it can grab this table and just join it to this one. But then which row should join to this one and which row should join to this one? And also there are many different number of rows here and there. So how exactly does it join these guys? So let's try this and see what will happen, because we can't break the computer anyway. Look at that. It actually worked. It just says select all from users, join posts. Now, this does not look very appealing. So let's try it a different way, because we can't really see what's going on here. So let's try this a different way. So I'll say select all from users, and then I'll say join. Actually, I want to reduce the number of columns in here. We can do that here, but I don't want to jump the gun already. So what I want to do is, okay. The reason why it went overboard like this is because this guy has too many columns. So what I want is just the ID of this one and the title of this one. Yeah, just the title of the post. Let's remove the dates from there as well. Just the name, title, and post. I think that should be enough to fit in here. So what I want is select those from users. So I want select ID, comma, name from users. And then say join posts. Now, how do I select which columns, how many columns I get from posts? Because there's no select statement like there is here where I can just say ID name. And also this is problematic because it doesn't know which of the two tables do I get this ID and name. So I have to specify here which table. So here I'm going to say users dot. Sorry, I thought the cursor was here. So here I'll say users, once more, users.id, like this one. That way it knows the ID I'm talking about, because both tables, keep in mind, they do have an ID column. So if I say select ID, how does it know which column is which? So I have to tell it. And here as well, I'll say users.name from that, and then join posts. Now right here, I can specify columns from the posts table as well. So here I'll say posts.id and then posts.title, like that. So let's recap a little bit. We say select, and then here we are providing the table, and because there are two tables involved, we have to specify the table and its column when we are putting which columns to show. And then we say from users, join posts. Okay, let's press enter and see what happens. And there it is. You see, there's an ID here and there are posts there. So now look at this. It has joined both and repeated the posts, and everything is repeated. This is like I don't know if it's a cross join or what, but things are repeated. Some of these are repeated, only that they are unique. You see, they're not actually matching to see, because Mary is not the one that created my new post, is she? My new post. Oh yeah, it is Mary. Okay, cool. But what about, let's see, there's also here my new post with John, which doesn't make sense. So let's tell it how to match this. I want them to match this user ID to this user ID here. So in the users table, there's an ID there that matches to this one. So I want to tell it to map these two. When you're joining, make sure that the ID on user ID is equal to this ID here on the other table. That's all I need. That way, one column makes sense, because here this does not make sense. So let's grab this. This will limit our results a little bit to be more accurate than this, because here it just shows that everybody wrote every post. So it just got every row here and matched it with every row on the other side, which is not good. So let's tell it specifically how to match this. So from there, we do this by saying from users join posts. And then once we write join and then the table name, we say on. And then we tell it what to map where. So we say where users.id is equal to posts.user_id. So I hope this is making sense as well. Let me copy this for future use. Oh no. Okay, copy. Okay, so select users. Yes, we're telling it that users.id should be equal to posts.user_id. So for reference, let's see here. User.id should be equal to posts.user_id. So in this case, this row will match with this. This one will match with this row. And this one will match again with John. So let's see that result. And there you see that the results are much cleaner, less results. Here we had unnecessary results. Here we taught it how to map and it got it right. As you can see, there's John with this post and John with this post again and that. So we can even add more and show the post. This is actually good for, let's say you are reading posts and you obviously want the information of the user, the one who posted it, and other information. Now, the beauty of joins is you can actually join more than one table. You can join all of them. You can say select all from users. Wait, can you actually join them? I don't think I've ever tried that. So let's try it. Select all from users. Join posts. Join. Oh yeah, you can actually. So join posts, join categories. I think I've done this before. Yeah, there we go. So you see there's electronics, there are categories in there, there's usernames, there's posts as well. So you can actually join all three in one thing. So let's try that in a in this environment. So I'm going to say select. First of all, I just want the username. So I want select users dot name. That's number one. Okay, so once I grab a username, that's fine. And then I want categories dot category. So I'll have a username, a category of the post. And then inside the posts table, I want the title. So you can just, like you're going shopping here and choosing one category or one column at a time from each table that you're going to be querying from. So users.name, categories.category, these are column names, and post.title, also posts.post itself, and then the date of the post as well, posts.date. So all these you can do. Okay, but let's just limit there. And then you say from posts, because posts is the main thing that we are grabbing, the main table. And then we'll just say join. What are we joining here? We're joining the users. We join users on. Okay, so posts join users on. Where there's users.id should be equal to posts.user_id. Okay, those two are joined together. And also join a third table, which is categories on. What are we joining this on? On categories. You can start with either tables here with the on section. Categories.id is equal to posts.category ID. Like that. Now keep in mind this query here, you can still put a where clause and say where, and then now you have to specify what column you're talking about, where posts.id is greater than 0. You can do that, or you can give a very specific answer where post, so you can have a complete where clause. Just remember that whenever you are referring to a column, you must do it like this to specify which table that column is from. So you can say where post ID is equal to, and then order by, even the order, how you order them. You can't just say order by ID descending like this. It won't know which ID this is. You have to say post.id descending like that. So this is a properly valid query. So let's run this and see if it actually works. Let me just copy this query. Copy. Okay, so let's run it. And there we go. Look at that. So that went just fine. So now, instead of just having a post and category ID and user ID, you have actual names here. So this post was written by that, and this is the category it belongs to, and so on. So you see, John wrote this in the clothing. John also wrote this in home and living, and these are the posts here. So very cool, right? Now, I'm particularly not a fan of left joins and right joins myself. I just like using join for the cross join like this one, where that we've used. This is a join I use the most. But you can also do left join. So let's try a left join in this case. So hopefully you have gotten what's happening here. Now, keep in mind, just like the subqueries, you don't have to have multiple tables to use join. You can join one table to itself if you want, right? That's also possible, because there are situations where, for example, you are grouping items, you get a result from there, and then you join it to another result. So those are complex queries, but I'm just letting you know that it can be done. You can join the same table to the same table. No, let's try that a little bit. Let's say select all from users, join users on user ID is equal to, oh wait, before we do even this join on, let's just join those two. No unique table alias users. Okay, that's a problem, I guess. Let's do this. Select all from users. It's complaining that that the table names are exactly the same, so we need an alias. So say select all from users. I'll call it as you. I'll just call it you. This is one thing I forgot to mention. You can actually use aliases. Okay. I'll show you how to shorten this query by using aliases. All right, so here we have as you, and then we say join users. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that works. Because this one is being called you, the other one is being called users. So they are unique. That way it knows internally that it treats them like two separate tables. So you see it's exactly the same information even here, but each is matched twice to the other one. That's why we have this. That's why it would be better to say select all from users, and then as you, then we say join users as X maybe. So that we have table U and table X, even though it's one table. And then we say on, then now we can use these aliases. We say, instead of saying on users.id, no, we're going to say on u.id, because we are now using the alias is equal to x.id. So may look a bit weird, but there you go. So to exactly the same table, just repeated data, which is not useful, but it can be useful in some situations where the joining leads to a specific result that you want. I've done that before to get for messages, I think, because message tables become quite complex at some point. Then I was forced to use joins like this on the same table to get a specific result. Anyway, so the query that's on top here can be grossly simplified. If I paste like this, you see this query, we can edit the users. let's put u as an alias. Uh-oh, what have I done? Oh my goodness. I forget this is not a proper text editor with the shortcuts I'm trying to use. So here, instead of posts.id, let's change that to p.id. Let's go again here, same thing here, p.id, and then category ID still here. We should do p.category ID. So all posts change to p. Category changes to c, because we'll use aliases here. So where we are telling it join categories, we'll say categories as c. That way we give it that alias. Same here, posts, we change that to p. And let's go here. Join users on users.id. So instead of users.id here, it's going to be u.id. Oops. Yes, like that. So where we say join users, we'll give it an alias as u, like that. So same as here from posts as p. So it didn't shorten it a whole lot, but it does work. Oh yeah, actually, it does shorten it here if we remove all of these as well. Even in here, right? p.title, c.category, because now we are using aliases. u.name. There we go. So yeah, that's how it is. So you can use aliases to have a shorter footprint. And there we go. It still works as intended. Okay. So the reason why this works is, for example, aliases work like this. I can say select all or select name and then date from users, right? Simple and straightforward. So there's name and there's date. But I can also do select name as first underscore name, okay? And then date as, I'll just call it when, or date as my date, like that, from users. So as you can see now, the columns have changed from name to first name, date to my date. So this is how aliases work. If you say as, then it now becomes known as that. Okay, so you can also, from users as you can do that. That's not a problem. So that's why aliases can work, can be used in that way. Now let's try a left join and a right join and see the difference. So I'll just briefly talk about those and the differences. So far with these results that we got, you didn't see any null or empty values at all. double L like this. You haven't seen any empty values yet. But if we do a left join and a right join, we will get those, because it's actually just common sense. Let's see it this way. So let's try, first of all, let's select from users, right? Just everything from users. Okay, let's try this. Selector from users, but then we do another select and say select all from posts. Now, posts has 3 records, okay, and users has 2 records. So let's see. Actually, this is not the right thing to do. Let's try the categories thing. That will better explain. The reason this won't work is because at least every column is mapped to every user. So a left join will work just fine here. Won't see any empty values. So let's try that. But just to show you the architecture of a left join, it's exactly the same as a normal join. The only difference is you just put the word left join. That's it. So here I'll say select all. Instead of selecting everything, I want u dot name, and then here I want p from posts dot title, and then p dot post, like that. So those three columns, that's what I want from here, and also p dot id. Okay, so we get that. I think maybe even u dot id. Let's try that. Now you can give them aliases so that they are just not ID, because it becomes a bit difficult to know, to grab which particular ID in case you want to use them. So you can say ID as user underscore ID, like that, if you want it to be like that. So maybe we can call it UUID, just to know it's a different ID, or UID, like that. Okay, so we've given one of them an alias, the other ones remain the same names. And then here we say from, so we are joining two tables, from users, like that. Okay, as u, that's important. Then we do a left join. Now what left join means is that we're going to join users to the rest of these guys. But if we want, okay, we'll just compare left and right join. So left join, what are we joining? We're joining the posts table. Posts as p, okay, on what account? On p dot post dot user ID, where that is equal to the user dot ID section, like that, which is called UID. So let's try that. Okay, so there we go. So as you can see, we have a user ID from the user, ID from posts, and then a post, a title, and the names of those that, so you can match, you can see that the ID is correct. There are 2 Johns and 1 Mary here. So everything is working as intended. So one thing to note is that we are doing a left join. So since it's a left join, wait a minute. Yeah. So left join will get table 1, which is users. Let's look at it here. Left join will get table 1, all the results from table 1, and then try to match table 2. So all the results from table 1 and try to match table 2. So that's what has happened here. So it doesn't look very much like a big difference from the other join we had, right? But there are circumstances where those things do not correlate. So let's see and try that. So what I want to do now is to read from categories. Now there's a specific reason for that. Let's do select from users, right? Select all from users for now. And then select all from categories. Now the reason I've done this is because, oh, actually no, wrong place. What I want is select all from posts. I want to join the posts table with the categories table. Now the reason I've selected these two is because you see there's number 3, which is not there here. So there's no category named electronics anywhere. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 4, but 3 does not exist. So this is where a left join will thrive. Now, the difference now with the left join and right join and that other join we were doing is that in that other join, we would not see this result. Electronics would never show up simply because there is no post here that has electronics. So it will completely be ignored because we are doing that join where they match. One matches here and the other matches there. So everything that matches on both sides will be shown. So yes, here on both sides. This is the cross join, I guess. Makes sense. But now a left join is going to read everything from the left table. So this one, the left table here, will read everything from here and then try to find what will match in the right table. If it doesn't match, then this one will have empty values. So let's see that in action. So I'm going to say select all from categories, right? Actually, selecting all is not a good idea. Let's just say select c.category. I have a tough time typing category here. So we want a category there, but then we want from the posts table, what we want from there. Okay, c.cid, like that. So the ID from the category side, so that we can compare those as well. And then I also want p.id. Oh wait, it's c.id here. Sorry, my bad. We'll say as cid. We'll give it an alias. And then p.id as PID. So we give it an alias as well. So we can tell the difference between which ID is from which. And then now what we want on the posts table, p.title and then p.post. That's enough. And then from, now this is a left join. So whatever we start with, category, we will have all the results returned. So the category from categories table, and then we'll say left join, like this. Left join, oh sorry, categories, we have to give it an alias, as C, and then left join. Now what are we joining on the left? We are joining the posts table as P, the alias. On, what are we joining these guys on? P dot category ID. Yeah, so we are joining the category ID here to that. On that is equal to c dot ID. Okay, that's the query. So let's try that. So there you see here, it got all the rows from the left table, which is the one that we started with. That's on the left side. And then it tried to match whatever is matching based on this here, category ID and ID from the other side. But then it searched and didn't find anything to match with electronics, but it still returned these no empty values. So it just means the electronics has no post associated with it. You would never see this with a cross join, only left and right joins. So if we did a right join here, we wouldn't have this no, because every post does have a category, but not the other way around. Not every category has a post. So let's see that in action. If I grab these guys, copy everything there, paste, and the only thing I will change is the left join. So instead of saying left, I'll just say right join. Everything else remains the same. Right? Right join. Simple, straightforward. Enter. So look at that. The difference between a left join and a right join. So the reason now is that the reason why we don't have any no values is because it first got the right table, which is the second table we showed, which is now posts. So posts is the right table. So then it tried to match categories based on the post. So this is why there is a category for every post, but there is no post for every category. This is why we get empty values like so. So these things may look very suspicious or very weird, but let's try an inner join as well. But as you practice, just do some tests on your own. Look at these queries that I'm doing. Try to test. You can't break these things. So run as many queries as you want just to get an idea of what's going on. So let's try an inner join here and see what will happen. Inner join. And there we go. So similar result with this and that, because it's just returning everything that matched on both sides. So an inner join is kind of like a cross join that we've been doing, because it never returns no values because it did find results on both sides, right? So that's the difference, I guess. So inner join will just return everything that matched on all sides, which is here, inner join. If it matched here and matched there, it will return. Here, if it matched, it will get everything from this table. Try to match it here. If it can't find some matches, it will put no values. Same thing here. The only difference between these two is if you swap the tables. So if I use a left join and then swap table 1 and write it in the query as table 2, then it effectively becomes a right join. So these two are exactly the same. It's just the order of the tables that is swapped. And then this one just brings out all the results from everywhere. So do some tests, see what works for you. All right, so at this point, ladies and gentlemen, let's do a practical project, yeah? Because I think practical projects you learn better. So if you did install XAMPP as instructed, and everything is running accordingly, you started Apache and you started MySQL, then you have PHP running on your system. So now we can create an actual website that we can work with. Just something simple, right? So what I want you to do, just for styling purposes, you don't have to do this, but go to Get Bootstrap. Go to getbootstrap.com and then go to find where to download Bootstrap. So this is just a CSS library, so we don't have to type any CSS because we waste time with that. You can go to the docs and good God, where is the download button? Okay, there we go. So download and then click download here. And then it will download a zip folder for you that contains Bootstrap. So once you do that, now you can go to drive C or wherever it is that you installed your XAMPP or MAMP. In my case, it's in drive C, XAMPP, and then go to htdocs or www folder in case that's what you have. Mine is htdocs. And let's create a new folder here. We're just going to call it multi-table, like that, multi-table. I will paste the download of Bootstrap there just for styling. Like I said, you don't have to do this. This is just for beauty, which we can live without. Then I can delete the... really what I want in here is just one file, the CSS file, bootstrap.css. You can use the mean version, which is smaller than that one, but it's exactly the same. So we'll get bootstrap.mean.css. That's the only file we want in here, really. Let's go back here and paste that, and we can delete the rest of this. Of course, keep the zip file for further use, but this is the only file I needed. So what I want to do is create a simple project here that we can work with. I will be using my text editor, Sublime Text, over here. So I will grab the multi-table folder and drop it inside my text editor. That way I can create files from here. Alrighty then, let's go back here into that folder. There we go, goodie. So back here, let's create some few files. So I'll right click, new file. This one will be the home page where we read the posts. So I want us to create some posts, read them by category and by user. Okay, so here I'm just going to say, I think I'll call this one posts.php, okay, to show all posts by either by category or not. Another one here. Oh, I've opened this file. New file. Let's put a couple of these, yeah. So I'll come back to this. This one is, so there's posts where we create the posts. There's users.php where we create users, and then we have categories.php where we create the category. So I won't put editing, I'll just put adding. No editing, no deleting. Those things I already did in several of my tutorials. You can check those out Here we're just interested in reading from multiple tables. So we have categories, we have posts, we have users. Very cool. Then we have the index page where we actually read the information from. What else? Let's grab the profile page. We can call it a profile page, but it's where we read all the posts from a specific user. The index page will read posts from every user and given a specific category, but then the profile page will read just from one user, just so we can see how we can mix those up. Now we're going to use exactly the same database we already created, so no biggie there. Okay, so we can get rid of this one. We don't need it. Oh, no, we do need it. We need some functions. Yeah. So let's put some PHP tags. Let's save this one as functions.php, so we can put any functions there. And of course, we want one function here called query. We want to use this to run some queries. So here we expect a query, and that's it. So that query there, and then the function. What I want here is to return some results. We'll call it a result, like this. Okay, so in order to run a query, we have to make a connection. So we'll just call it con as a connection. And then we'll use MySQLi to connect MySQLi. I haven't used this in forever. I use PDO most of the time, so even in practical projects, I don't use MySQLi, but PDO. But it's easier to use MySQLi. Maybe it's high time we bought Sublime Text, eh? Anyway, so MySQLi here. In here, you just type the host name. So our host name is localhost. And then we type in the username and password. Username is root. And then this is password, which is an empty string. And then let's tell it what DB we want to use. So that's my website underscore DB. Okay, so this is our connection string. If everything went well, let's try here and do var dump of con, just to see if it's an actual valid resource. Result is not a thing, so let's just say result is equal to false for now. Okay, all right, so if we run a query, things should work, right? Let's try this out. So we go to our index page, since it is the actual page. Let's put some HTML here. We'll just call it home so that we can do stuff with it. We can put our PHP code anywhere, maybe at the top, maybe here, no problem, doesn't matter. Let's just put, we can intersect PHP with HTML, no problem, and run some PHP here. So here I want to include the functions file. So say include. Actually, it's a requirement, so I just say require. It's good to say require once, because sometimes you never know, you may require it twice inside several files, which may cause problems. Functions, right? .php. Cool. Now let's go to our very nice, very cheap Sublime Text, eh? So buy a copy and support the movement. Unlike me, who hasn't bought a copy up to now. Anyway, so what I want to do here is grab this file from this index file. I can drag and drop it into my, yes. Or you can just press Alt F and then say open file and find that file. But after htdocs here, or the www folder, and then everything before that, just type localhost instead. Now, if your server is using a different port, then you have to put the port number here. You say localhost : and then put your port like 8080 or something, and then load the page. Now mine will get lost if I do that. So there we go. The fact that it says home here means it has loaded the page very well. I can also type some gibberish here and actually see it when I refresh the page as so. Okay, cool. So everything is working, or is it? What I want to do is I just want to run the query function. So just say query, put an empty string in there and pretend it's a query, and then do that. Since the function itself says var dump that, I just want to see if this connection was created successfully. That's all. The fact that I've seen all of this and not an error means it's working. Yay. Okay, so it's a MySQL object. Nice. So if you actually use pre-tags here, let me just show you some pre-tags. It makes it more clear what's going on, and not so clear actually. I should have used printer instead of var dump. Much cleaner. Var dump shows too much information. Okay, much cleaner here. So as you can see here, there are none of what I wanted. Okay, cool. Client version, it shows things here, maybe even the port. Can't see it. Anyway, so what we do here, we know that the connection has been made. If the connection failed, look for correct spellings here. Make sure your username is root. If you locked your MySQL with another username, use that. If you're using mump, the password might be root. I forgot to mention that in the beginning, I guess. Okay. Or this connection would even work if there was no database name, right? If you omitted the database name, it would still work. Then you can just run a query saying use mywebsite.db. That would work as well. Okay, so let's go ahead. Now I want to run the query. So we're just going to say the connection here will say result is equal to MySQL query, like this, and then we run our query there, like that. Okay, so now we check if MySQLi result I want to know if it has returned the result. I think it's num rows. Why don't I get a suggestion here? Anyway, I haven't used this in a while, so I've forgotten how this is done. So result is equal to MySQL query. If MySQL query result, I think I should have put the connection here, right? Query and then connection. Yeah. Otherwise it wouldn't know which connection to use when querying. So once we get this, okay, this is not the actual result. I also want to return res like that, different to this one. So if things went well here, we'll do a MySQLi fetch, right? Now, what do I want to fetch here? Fetch ASOC, associative array, like this. Result. So if there are some results, let's fetch them from there. Let's use a while loop. While MySQLi fetch. Oh boy, I'm lost here. Let's set this fetch to a row. Yeah, like this. There we go. Yes. Now I can grab res here and save each row to res like this as an array. Res is equal to row. But I think doing this may be prohibited in future. But at this point we can do this and set it to an empty array. That way when we add things, it's justifiable. Okay, so we'll have res, boom. Okay, cool. So let's try and run a query here. So what's happening here is that we make a connection, run the query, and then if there's a result, here we're just checking if the number of rows is greater than 0. That's what I forgot. So this one returns a number of rows that were returned. As long as they're greater than 0, then we are good to go. We loop through those results and save them into this array, and then we return that array back. Okay, so that's all we are doing here. So index, let me try and just say, instead of echo, because I can't echo this, I'll say print readable. That's what we use for arrays. I know the result will either be an array or, yeah, it might be an array, so that's why I'm using that. So I'm running a query. Let me run a query here and say select all from users. Just that. Okay. So let's come back here and refresh. Code to undefined function MySQL query. Okay, that's true. That function does not exist. It needs an I here. So don't forget those I. MySQL I. Okay, so what's going on here? It says MySQL query argument 1 must be of type MySQL string. Of type MySQL I. But a string was given instead. So which means we have to swap these guys. The connection comes first. So there we go. Connection removed. So connection, then query. Like I said, I haven't done this in a while. Used this. Oh, there we go. So we have the result, which is nice, but I want it in form so we can close our functions. That's all I needed in that functions thingy. So here what I want is to echo some pre-tags so that it looks much nicer, the result. And let's see that. And there we go. So I have two arrays here. There's John and there's Mary. So it's working. Yes, yes. Okay, so on the index page, we are just reading information that we've already added. So maybe there was not even need to add all of these things, but let's just do it anyway. Yeah, cool. So from here, I want to read from posts actually. And there we go. So we have 1, 2, 3 posts. Cool. But then I want to add bootstrap here so that it looks better. So say link, and then the href, I'll just do dot, it's in the same folder. In fact, I don't need to do that. I can just say bootstrap dot mean dot css. Okay, so once I add that, I should see the font change. And as the font has changed, it means bootstrap is working. Very nice. Now I want to change these into actual looking posts, things that look like posts of some kind. So I will set this to a result. I'll say rows is equal to, right? And then ask myself, if not empty, if rows are not empty, then let's do something else. In fact, let me do this in the HTML version. Let's do this. Let me put some PHP tags. I'm doing this so that I can put it on the HTML side here of things. And then put some PHP tags and put end if as well, like that. Okay, so I want to loop through the results. If they're not empty, I'll duplicate those and then do run a for each loop, like that. So for each rows as row. Like this. Okay. So for each rows as row, and then in here, let me put a div. Okay. But I want to put a div that holds everything around this. So opening, closing div. Push everything over. Now I can use some bootstrap classes. So first of all, I'll set this one as a row like this. But then as well, it's a column, medium, maybe 8, so that it's not so And then I'll give it a border. I'll give it a padding of 4 and maybe rounded border. Yeah, you know, vanity stuff. And then I'll center it MX auto like this. Cool. So let's refresh and see. This is the box right there. Okay. If I put BG light, will that show a difference? Yes, there we go. So that's the box here I've created. But let me put some results in there. The posts themselves. I'll put a class here as well. These guys are column MD maybe 4. So Bootstrap has 12 columns. So if I put 8, it means I'm telling it to just take 8 segments. So each, like this page right now is divided into 12 parts. So I'm telling it to only spread up to 8 parts here. So that's why I'm doing that. Now the reason I did MD is for responsive design, so that when it reaches a certain point it fills the whole space, but at some point it stops growing like that. So anyway, Bootstrap 101. So here I'll put 2 columns each, and then BG white. That way we can know the difference. Let's put a border as well, like that. And let's put a margin around it of 2, some padding of 2 as well. Cool. But in here, now we have a row that we can use here to display stuff. So PHP, I can put echo. Instead of doing PHP echo, we just put equal sign, say row, and then the result is an array. So the title of that post. Now I want to wrap this into an maybe an H2 tag like this, and then go this way as well. Close that. Then let me put a P tag here, and then put the post itself inside there. So there is the post. Then I can gladly put the date as well here. So date, but let's make it look fancy. So we say date, let's give it a format, small letter J, capital S, comma, M, and then actually the comma should be here, and then the year like that, and then comma like this. Let's remove this. Let's use the string to time function to convert this into an integer, because that's what the date function requires. And that's it. So let's see what we got. There we go. My post, new post, blah, blah, blah. So these guys are too squeezed, it seems. Why is this going all the way over there? Weirdness. Let me put H5 here so that things are smaller. I don't want to waste time on design. Okay, so maybe these are too small. Let me put 4 columns. Okay, at least this is reasonable. Okay. Now if you want to center things, you can put justify on the main thing. Content center, align items center. Okay, there we go. So we have a post here, just so they are clearer, more easier to see. Let's put shadow on these posts. Okay, there we go. So we have a post, not the best posts around, but at least it gets the idea across. Why is that so much space here? Okay, let's have a style here. Yeah, why is it so huge? That's weird. Let's see. There's align items start. Let's see what that will do. No, that didn't work at all. Yeah, these guys are going too long. They're trying to fit the entire space, but that's okay. We'll leave that as it is. And now I want to be able to get user names here as well for each one of these posts. So username with this. So what we will do is we'll run a query. So what I'll do first of all, before even that, I'll duplicate this and say name like that. So trying to extract the column, I'll say by like this and put the name there like so. And then let's do the same thing and say category, right? And then put a category there. Now keep in mind that in the post table, these rows do not exist, these columns do not exist. So of course we will see some errors like that, but never you mind. We will just go back to the query and run a different query. So here we did say selector from posts. That's a query we're running. Oh, this is why things are not working well. There's a pre-tag there. Oh my goodness. Ah, there we go. Finally. Okay, so now let's deal with this undefined what. So just like I said with the queries, here we just say selector from posts, right? Sorry. And then we will do a join. So we will join users, for example. Okay, selector from posts, join users on, what are we joining that on? We are joining it on where users dot id is equal to posts dot user underscore id, like that. Okay, so joining, and just like that, you see now we have a name there. We'll do the same for category. We'll join a categories table at the end and just say join categories on. And what are we joining this on? It's an categories table dot id is equal to posts dot category underscore id. Okay, so if I refresh, there we go. So at least we have the post title, we have the username, we have the category, and the content of the post itself, and then the date. So of course we can style these a bit better, but you get the idea. So this for the index page. Now, what if I want to get specific category when reading from here? So here I can put a query in the string. Here I can put a question mark and say cat. I'll just put that category name. So cat is equal to, what category do I want? There's lifestyle. I know that one has something there. So let's just type that lifestyle in the query. So obviously you won't be typing in your query. You will be what's the thing? We can create a button here so that once you click on that button, it adds this to the query itself. Okay, so that you can only get results from a specific category. But let's try lifestyle. So this one. So here I should get only this result. So let me click that, and there it is. Now, if you wanted to create a query that will do that, or to link a link that will do that, right here on category, I can just add an a tag like so, and put an href, right? And then close it there so that the category has a link, and the link will link to this same page, which is index.php. But then we'll put a query string, put cat is equal to, and then whatever the category name is at the time, which is this one. So we just copy exactly this and put it as part of that, like so. Okay, cool. So we've done that to create a link. As you can see, that's the link. So let's see that here. And as you can see, it links to that. So if I click, you see home and living, click lifestyle, click clothing. So we can grab that from the get variable and use it in our query if we want to. So how do we do that? Easy peasy. right here we can just say category is equal to, and then we just check if there's something in the get variable called cat, like that. If it does not exist, then let's put a no object, like that, just emptiness. So then we can edit the query at this point. So I'm just going to grab this, cut that, and put query variable instead, which we will create shortly. So here I will say, my mouse is the worst. I'll say query is equal to paste, like so. Okay, easy peasy. Now, if a category exists, so we'll say if category, then let's create a different query instead. So I'll duplicate this query, Ctrl+Shift+D, select it, Control down, just to Ctrl+Shift down, like that, just to move it in there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that we replace the query with something that contains a category, that way, if there's a category existing. So from there we'll say selector from posts, join. All these joins are nice, but then we want to, you can also put subqueries and joins and all that in there. So like you remember last time, I need to put a where clause and say where only the category is equal to whatever category is in there. But remember, the category is not an ID that's in the URL, it's some actual text. So we need a way to extract the ID so we can use it in the query. So here we'll just go here and say where, I'll leave a space. Now for better visibility, I'll duplicate this and put a dot here, dot equals, so that it means adding to the query. I'm not removing, I'm just adding to it. So I'll say where, where the category ID in, like that, and then let's do that. Okay, so there we're going to add a subquery. So this is all a join, but we're going to use a subquery in there as well. So we'll say select. What we really want is a category ID. So select ID from categories. Okay, so select ID from categories where the category itself, the name, is equal to whatever category we've been given there. So let's put that in quotes and say category, like that, as a variable. So whatever category that is, great. Oh, the problem is we are using single quotes on the outside as well, so this is a problem. Let's use double quotes on the outside of the query. That way there's a difference. There we go. Okay, so there we go, this should work. Select ID in blah blah blah. Okay, cool, let's try that. And as you can see, it just shows clothing as it says there. If I clear that out from the URL, I can click on home and living. Oh, so there's a problem here because there's that and percent there, I guess. Let's try clothing, lifestyle. These work just fine. Clothing, just fine. But this and there is destroying things. Destroyed. So what do we do to fix that? We can add slashes, I guess. I don't know. Let's try and say, eesh, my goodness. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'll say category is equal to add slashes. Let's try that. Not add C slashes, just add slashes category, so that it can escape that weird character. Still didn't work at all. So it's not good to put those ands in there. Another way to do this is to say URL encode. We can leave this as it is, that's fine. But let's go down here, and where we are putting this, we can use URL encode. URL encode. Why isn't this showing me suggestions? Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's see if that will work. Let's go back, refresh, home and living. That worked. So you see the ampersand was changed to a more URL friendly version, that and the %26, and the spaces are changed to pluses. So that's how you achieve that. Alrighty then. So these ones will not have that problem. Oh no, we are back. You know, I should have just put an index index link up in here to stop this nonsense. Okay, so let's put maybe h1 and just say home like that. Close the a tag, which I will create. Index.php. Okay, better like that, so that I can just click there. Click. Wait, why is it not clickable? Oh no. Oh, the a tag is on the outside. Okay. If I can put a class for text center, that would be nice, from Bootstrap. Okay, so click home, we are here, there, home, there, there, home. So if I had several of these, we would see all the items in that column fall into place. So for example, let me just add, let me go back here. Let me add one more post. So there are posts here, but I can click insert over here, or I can use the command line, but here the title, a new post of a kind. Some post text over here. The current date will show, but I want the user ID to be 1, and then the category may be 2, just so we have two records, and this is the query that was run to create that. So if I click browse, now I have an extra post, which if I go back here and refresh, there's an extra post. So as you can see, there's 2 home and living. I just wanted to make the point that if I click here, I'll see both of them, because there are 2 of them there. So that's how you run things to read by category, by user, etc., etc. So hopefully this has taught you something. Something new. Let's see. Let's beautify these guys a little bit. Let's put padding 4 here. Always looks better. Wait, I've put border twice. Why? I wanted to put rounded. Yes, something like this. Home page. There we go. Alrighty then. Okay, now I wanted to add more content where we add more posts, users, and all that, but I think it's a waste. We've already learned. Our objective is on reading from the database through several tables. And this query right here encompasses everything we've learned so far, because it has subqueries. The only thing missing here is a union. But otherwise we have join, we have subquery right here. So you can do similar things. Even let's say, let me grab this. Here there's home. If I go to user here, where is this? The same thing I've done for this part. So let me copy this and put it on the name right there. I can do exactly the same thing. So let me paste this. So instead of that, we will have the profile page, right? Profile, and then not category, but we'll say user is equal to, and then here instead of row category, we'll have row, what did we have? Name, like that. Okay, cool. So what I'm trying to do here is that if I click on a name, I should see all the posts done by this person, just like this one here. So I would just duplicate the same index page, copy everything, go to profile page, paste right there. Okay, so once I paste and save, why isn't PHP showing? So if you find yourself the PHP is not active here, just click here. It just recognizes this as HTML, but put it on PHP. But it doesn't affect anything really. So this is the profile page, and the query will change. It's the same query, but the where clause will change. Instead of category ID, we are looking for a particular user ID to deal with. Where user ID in, and you say select ID from users. Yeah, where the name of that user is equal to, we'll use this as name instead of category. So I'm going to, oops, I'll leave those there. I want to change this to name. Not there, no. So let's change that to name, and this as well. This line is not required, but it's okay for safety sometimes. It will escape some values that may not be good, may be used for hacking or stuff. Anyway, the point is selector from posts, users, blah blah blah. Yeah, so we're repeating ourselves. Instead of cut here, we are looking for the user key in the table. Okay, cool. So with this in mind, if I now click on John, you see it shows me John stuff. Now, instead of here, I'll just say profile so that we know we are on a different page. In fact, let me just duplicate this. There's home there and there's profile here, like so. Wait a minute. This one should go back to profile.php. But this is not useful actually. So let me just leave it there. Just so we know we're on a different page. So this is the profile page. If I click home, we come back to the home page. If I click Mary, it shows me only the posts done by Mary. Back home, if I click John, it shows me the posts done by John. So like that. Let me put this on 4, 4, and 2, 2. Okay. Much better. Home. Right, isn't. So I guess you get the idea here, how you can mix information from several tables and so on. So if you have any comments, please just leave them in the comment section and I'll try to get to you as quickly as I can. But otherwise, I hope you have learned something new. Happy coding!